Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about the war on consciousness. I recently had a request to create some video content about this topic, so I've got a few bullet points over here I'm going to be referring to as we progress through this video. And I try to just get into a flow state when I do videos like this and let the information flow from the source energy through my body, basically just using my body as a vessel or as a conduit to relay this information to spread awareness and help move forward this great awakening, help move along this process of waking people up from their mainstream media induced comas is what some of us call it. So the war on consciousness, we're going to scratch the surface. The first thing I want to talk about here is certain tactics that are used in this war. Now, you must keep in mind that this is an irregular war. I know when most people think of the word war, they automatically start thinking of scenes that they saw in major motion pictures or on television. People running through the jungles with M16s and grenades and blowing people up and flying in fighter jets and stuff like that. But the war that's being fought right now on our planet, it's an irregular war. And the weapons of choice are not just machine guns and tanks and fighter jets. The weapons of choice are things like propaganda. They're things like vaccines, bioweapons. Well, they're not really even vaccines. They're lethal injections under the guise of a vaccine that's supposed to cure some kind of virus. The propaganda machine, the mainstream media, different ways that they psychologically manipulate human consciousness. And also there's this other tactic called divide and conquer, which we're going to get into a little bit. But we are in an irregular type of warfare right now. The war is being fought for the consciousness. And one of these tactics that they use is called a Hegelian dialectic. Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, they wait for the people to react, and then they bring in a solution. But the solution isn't really ever anything that's going to benefit the people. It's typically something that's going to remove people's freedom under the guise of for your safety. And when I say they, I'm talking about the Illuminati, the deep state, the cabal, the New World Order, the Satanists, whatever you want to call them. Some people call them the black hats. Some people call them the communists. Whatever you want to call them, when I say they, that's typically who I'm going to be referring to. The bad guys, for lack of better words. So I'm going to give you an example of this Hegelian dialectic. The bombing of the World Trade Center on September 11th. They created that. That was a manufactured event. It was planned out decades and decades in advance. They create this problem. Oh my God, America's under attack, terrorists. They wait for the people to react. The people react in fear. And the solution, the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was just a bill that was passed that took away a whole bunch of people's freedom. That's all it was. Problem, reaction, solution. Hegelian dialectic is what that is. And they use that over and over again. It's a rinse and repeat tactic that they use to psychologically manipulate people and take away their freedoms. A recent one, there was a fake pandemic in 2020 that they ran a big, massive mainstream media propaganda campaign about. They created fear. They wait for the people to react. Fear, oh my God, this virus going around. And the solution, vaccines and masks. And take away people's freedoms, shut down the economy, wipe out the middle class. Hegelian dialectic, that's just one tactic that they use. Confusion, gender confusion, grooming of children is another psychological manipulation that we see going on right now. They're trying to confuse people. They want men confused. They want men to think they're women. They want women to think they're men. They want men to think they can get pregnant. There's a lot of confusion that is being created right now within the human consciousness through these mainstream media campaigns that they run. The gender confusion. They want men to start injecting like estrogen. They want women to start injecting testosterone and to start manipulating their hormones and things like that. This is all planned out. It's all planned out. They plan this stuff out decades in advance. Another one is the GMO foods. It lowers the vibration. It lowers the vibration of your body and it creates dis-ease. Genetically modified food, poison food. I mean, they put things in the food to weaponize the food. The food is weaponized. It's designed to lower your vibration. It's designed to create disease. It's designed to create inflammation and toxicity in your body. This is all part of this irregular warfare that's playing out right now. Fluoride in the water. They poison the water with fluoride, even other chemicals, things like that. And what this does is it shuts down your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is a little mechanism inside your brain. It's your portal to higher consciousness. It's your some people call it a portal. Some people call it the third eye or the seat of the soul. But it's the mechanism inside the brain in which the consciousness incarnates into the body and is able to experience life subjectively through the 5 sensory organs. And that little device called the pineal gland, when you learn how to activate it and you learn how to open it and you learn how to utilize it, it heightens your awareness. It allows you to connect to your higher self, your source energy. Some people call it the ether, some people call it prana, some people call it chi energy, some people call it God, some people call it Jesus, some people call it Buddha, some people call it Allah. I typically just call it the higher consciousness or the source energy. It is the creative energy that flows through our body. It's the creative energy that's incarnated into our bodies. It's the creative energy that flows through the whole universe. And it's the creative energy that creates life. It's the creative energy that causes your heart to beat without you thinking about it and causes your food to digest without you thinking about it. It's the creative energy that causes the complex and beautiful geometric shapes and patterns that we find all throughout the architecture of the universe. The golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, the way that a pine cone grows in a perfect spiral. That's all the intelligent design of the consciousness of the universe that is flowing through us. And by shutting down our pineal glands, it severs our connection to that higher consciousness. It also creates depression. The shutting down of the pineal gland and the combination of the GMO foods that lowers our energy creates depression. It creates depression. The satanic music industry, subliminal messaging. For example, in a lot of the lyrics in the songs, like we'll take Britney Spears, for example, has a song where she's repeating this chorus, "I'm a slave to you." Those are all part of the psychological warfare. They implant these ideas into the subconscious mind, especially into the children when they're susceptible and they don't have critical thinking capabilities and they're hearing these songs on repeat over and over again and they sing the songs. This is all psychological programming. You can look at the satanic symbolism in the music videos of other artists such as Kesha. There's satanic symbolism all through her music videos. Travis Scott uses a lot of satanic symbolism. He recently did a concert where the whole theme of the concert was like the gates of hell, and that was a satanic ritual in that concert. I think about a dozen people died in that concert, and there's even a scene where Travis Scott literally looks like he gets possessed while some of the dead bodies are being carried out of the crowd. He literally like almost loses consciousness and starts like slurring while these dead bodies are getting carried out of the crowd. It was very, very weird, strange, freaky. And there's a lot of other musicians that look like they get possessed for a certain period of time while they're on stage because they're like inviting that energy through all the symbolism and the music and the energy of the crowd. It's very weird, very strange things, very, very weird spell casting type things that they do. Another one is the social media censorship and propaganda on social media. So the social media, they use algorithms to put things in your newsfeed that you see when you log in and start scrolling the newsfeed. Even if you did not subscribe or follow these things, they're still putting these things in front of you because the matrix system wants you to see it. On TikTok, for example, the algorithm feeds things into the news feeds of United States citizens that is different from other countries. So they program the algorithm and they put specific things into the news feeds specific to each country, depending on how they want to psychologically manipulate the consciousness of each population, depending on which country they're in. They do this same thing on Instagram, same thing on Facebook, same thing on YouTube, same thing on Google. Those are all matrix controlled platforms where they're running propaganda campaigns to psychologically manipulate human consciousness in certain ways. And also to create division, to divide people, the divide and conquer strategy. There's so much propaganda that divides people. I'll give you examples. White versus black, Republican versus Democrat, gay versus straight, rich versus poor, even religious division, Muslim versus Christian, Christian versus Catholic, Mormon versus Christian. They want people divided and arguing amongst themselves all the time, regardless of what the topic is. I mean, they don't even care. As long as they can create some kind of propaganda campaign and get people to argue about something and divide about something, they will do it. We also see this divide and conquer strategy played out in the indoctrination camps, also known as public schools, by creating sports teams and then having teams compete against each other. That also creates tribalism and divides and conquers the people. They start it very young, this psychological programming in the indoctrination camps. And then they pay the athletes hundreds of millions of dollars to participate in these tribalistic sporting events that divide people. And then in the sporting events, they have the satanic musicians come and do their rituals, their performances. All the performances by these musicians they're all satanic rituals, like Rihanna and the Super Bowl. Those are Beyonce, all of them. They're all part of the satanic music industry. And all the big performances are rituals. That's why the Matrix spends billions of dollars to create the stadiums. The stadiums cost billions of dollars. Why would they be spending billions of dollars on stadiums when we have people starving to death? Because they don't care about people starving to death. The stadiums, this method goes back to the days of ancient Rome. In the Roman Empire, they said, give them the bread and circus and they will never revolt. And by the bread and circus, what they mean is we have to give them entertainment. And that was the Colosseum with the gladiators and the competitions that they would have with the gladiators. But now they have the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, they have the World Cup, and they have these giant stadiums. And that's the new bread and circus. You see, the Roman Empire just expanded. Even in the book of Revelation, it says, and then, Babylon also, it's like, these different cities that rise and fall and then refigure throughout time. We have Babylon, we have the Roman Empire, but this carried on now and it split. And even in the book of Revelation, it said the city was split into 3 sections. And I believe those 3 sections now would be the Vatican, and then you have London, which is like the financial sector, and then the Vatican is the religious sector, and then you have the United States, Washington, D.C., which is the military sector of that city that split. And now that's how they rule the world, through religion, finances, and the military. So they have these 3 powerhouses out there ruling over everyone, and then at the same time they're psychologically manipulating consciousness through the mainstream media, through the food, through the air you breathe. Chemtrails in the air, they poison the air you breathe, they poison the water you drink, they poison the food you eat. It's all weaponized. Everything has been weaponized. Even the United States dollar is weaponized currency. They use it to manipulate people. Control of available information, language, indoctrination, compulsory education. It creates dumbed down children that mindlessly regurgitate information rather than question its validity. That's why in the indoctrination camps, the children they're just tested. They get handed out textbooks, and then they're taught to mindlessly regurgitate the information and take a test about it. And whoever mindlessly regurgitates the information accurately gets a good grade. And children that question its validity are punished and ridiculed. That's also part of the war on consciousness, is to turn children into obedient workers that do not question authority. And then again, throughout the whole child's life, they're psychologically and subconsciously taught that if they don't obey, they are punished. That if they think outside the box, they are punished. That if they don't follow the rules, they are punished. And that gets psychologically embedded into their subconscious. And that's why so many people just live out their whole life being a worker slave, working, getting taxed, overworked, underpaid. And for the most part, they don't really have a whole lot of freedom. The illusion of freedom. They've created an illusion of freedom. The illusion of freedom, however, the reality is that there's really nothing free about the way that people live, especially in the United States. There's not really one thing you can think of that isn't taxed, regulated, or illegal. Every aspect of human life in the United States is either taxed, regulated, or made illegal. It's the illusion of freedom. And then let's talk a little bit more about the control of the available information. So this system of enslaving humanity through the consciousness, through the war on consciousness, is very old. It's very ancient. It's nothing new under the sun. I mean, some of the tactics and the methods might be fine-tuned and get a little more advanced over the years, but for the most part, these methods of psychologically manipulating human consciousness and warring against human consciousness, it goes back to the days of ancient Egypt and even beyond that. In the days of ancient Egypt, there was the gods, and the gods was just the government. They were just, people with really highly advanced technology. Some people believe they're extraterrestrial people that came in from another planet. There's a lot of evidence to support that, but for the most part, the gods of Egypt, the gods in the Bible, the gods of Greek mythology, those were just people that had a lot of money and a lot of power and a lot of technology. And in the days of ancient Egypt, the way that they enslaved people is they had 3 sets of languages. And you had the language of the gods, you had the language of the government, and you had the language of the slaves. And this was how they psychologically manipulated their consciousness, is by controlling the available information. And the way that you control the available information is through the language that people are allowed to speak and through the indoctrination that they receive when they are a child. And the slaves were only allowed to learn one language. The government was allowed to learn the government language and the slave language. And then the gods knew all 3 languages. So the gods had a whole just more advanced perception and understanding about how reality works. And this is still going on today. It's going on right now in the United States. There's nothing new under the sun. The English language is weaponized. The words that people speak in English cast spells. For example, the word government comes from 2 words in Latin, gubernare, which means like to control or to steer, referring to like a ship, like to steer or to pilot, and then ment. The second part comes from mente, which means mind. So the word government literally means to control one's mind or to steer one's mind. And then other words too, like mortgage, people get mortgages for their house, comes from Old French. Mort comes from the mortuary, where dead people go, and a gage is a contract or a pledge. So the word mortgage means death pledge. And it's not a coincidence that the word mortgage means death pledge, and it takes most people their entire life to pay off a mortgage. In fact, most people die before they ever pay off their mortgage. And even when people do pay off their mortgage, they never truly paid it off or owned the house in the first place because they pay property tax every single year. And when you get the tax bill at the end of the year, you're listed as a tenant. A tenant is a renter, not an owner. So even that, people don't even own their house. The state owns their house. And again, the state is the government, the matrix, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. That's all their system of enslavement. It's how this all goes back to the war on consciousness and how they psychologically manipulate consciousness. Another one we have here is the economic manipulation. And again, this kind of goes back to turning humans into obedient workers for their whole life, but they do this through the economic manipulation. In 1971, President Nixon took us off the Bretton Woods Agreement. They terminated the Bretton Woods Agreement, which took us off the gold standard, and that allowed the matrix controllers to print money endlessly, inflating the economy, and basically just using it as a weapon. They weaponized the United States dollar through the ability to print as much money as they want while using it to enslave a lot of other people. And not only do they, print this money into oblivion, robbing people of their wealth, but they use all the liquidity that they have from their infinite amount of money printing to cause boom and bust cycles in all the different markets. See, every single market goes through these boom and bust cycles, and these boom and bust cycles are manufactured. They are created by the matrix controllers, and this is how they impoverish people and enrich themselves. They enrich themselves at other people's expense by creating boom and bust cycles that the markets go through. We saw this happen in 2008 with the housing collapse. There's the depressions in the 1920s. All the different markets go through these cycles, and when, like for example, with the 2008 housing collapse, when the market bottomed out, you know what the matrix controllers did? They bought up all the properties for dirt cheap while people got impoverished. And then when the market recovers and starts peaking out and hits all-time highs again, that's when they're running propaganda campaigns to get everyone thinking that this is a great time to buy. So what they do is they psychologically manipulate human consciousness to get people to buy at all-time highs and then sell at all-time lows. It's called panic selling. And it's human emotions that drive markets up. It's human emotions that drive markets down. When markets are driving up, it's because there's an emotional, there's an emotion attached to it. Like when people are buying, for example, like Bitcoin, when people were buying Bitcoin at $20,000 a coin during the 2017 cycle, people did that because they thought Bitcoin was going to keep going up and up and up and up to 100,000 a coin. But then it crashed back down and the cycle played out again. So these are just, again, examples of the weaponized and manipulated economy. This is also done to destroy the middle class. They want to destroy the middle class, and also the confiscation of wealth. Confiscation of wealth. This stuff is nothing new. You see, when you have a population of people that are starting to get wealthy, which is, kind of what the middle class was starting to do. People actually got into this middle class and they started having a little more time freedom. They started getting a little more power. When you have a whole bunch of people that have some extra spending money, they have time freedom, they can come together and unify and take action against their conqueror. And the reason that right now there's a war to destroy the middle class is because they don't want anyone having any wealth or any power at all. Debt enslavement. Again, this goes back to the fiat money, going off the gold standard, putting people into a never-ending spiral of debt, taxation, fractional reserve banking. They're charging interest all the time on everything. This is all part of this economic warfare that's taking place to create debt slaves. The social credit system, the recent collapse of some of these central banks, and the attempt to implement what's called a CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency. Right now, there's a war playing out not only on human consciousness, but it's a war to gain control of the currency, of the monetary systems. Right now, with all the banking collapses that are happening, I see two players on the field right now. You have this satanic New World Order that's trying to implement a central bank digital currency combined with a social credit system. And the way that would work, if they're successful with it, is that they will force everyone to use their central bank digital currency, which will be a financial system that they control and monitor. And they will be able to program the money. They'll be able to program it to have an expiration date. So you have to spend it and you can't save it because they don't want you saving and building up wealth. They want to make you spend the money. They will also have a kill switch so that they can just touch a button and turn you off. They will turn off your ability to buy food. They will turn off your ability to pay rent. They will turn off your ability to participate in society. They will turn off your ability to buy or sell. It talks about that in the book of Revelation also. Anything that is centralized is bad news. Stay away from it. Any kind of centralized monetary system is bad news. You definitely do not want to participate in centralized systems. And then that's what most people are using now, is centralized banking systems. Visa, American Express, MasterCard, Discover, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, those are all centralized third-party payment processors that can freeze your account at any given time. What their ultimate goal is they're going to create an even more centralized system because they want to eliminate cash. Cash is decentralized. There's nothing they can do to stop me from handing cash to someone. But if everything is digital, then they can just turn a button or basically hit a button and turn off your ability to transact. That's what the central bank digital currencies are designed to do. The central bank digital currencies will be connected to your digital ID and a social credit system. And it will all be connected to your Facebook, your YouTube, your Instagram, your TikTok, and all the social media platforms you utilize, as well as your Gmail account. And the centralized system, the artificial intelligence that is connected to your central bank digital currencies, connected to your social media, and connected to your digital ID, it will read all your texts, everything you've ever posted on social media, and it will identify whether or not you are saying things that are approved by the matrix controllers. And if you voice your opinion on social media, or even if you just send a text message and you have an opinion that is pro freedom, or you have an opinion that is not that is not in congruence with the agenda of the satanic New World Order, they will just turn you off. They'll just touch a button and say, oh, you criticize the government on Facebook today. They're just going to touch a button, and it's like, you're not going to be able to use money, your money. Well, not really your money. A central bank digital currency wouldn't be your money. It'd be their money. And they would be granting you access to transact with it as long as you are an obedient little worker slave in their matrix, their control matrix that they're trying to create. Now, I see a currency race. And I just described how the evil side is going to function if they succeed. There is a good side in the race as well, and this is the decentralized currencies. Decentralized means that you can transact without a third-party intermediary. A decentralized currency will allow you to send and receive money and participate in the economy in ways where no government or central bank can freeze your account or stop a transaction. And this is all done digitally as well with the cryptocurrencies. Things like Bitcoin is fully decentralized. XRP, Litecoin, Ethereum, XDC, XLM, there's all kinds of decentralized currencies and decentralized monetary systems out there that liberate people and empower people. Now, a lot of these decentralized monetary systems, they have limited supplies of their cryptocurrencies. So they cannot be inflated the same way that the US dollar and all bank printed money has been inflated ever since it got taken off the gold standard. So this is probably the most relevant and the most recent thing that I want to bring to people's attention is the currency war that's playing out right now. All these central banks like the Silicon Valley Bank that just collapsed, the Silvergate Bank that just collapsed, all these banks that are collapsing is all part of a plan. It's all part of an agenda. Again, problem, reaction, solution. Remember the Hegelian dialectic I talked about earlier in this video? This is another example of the Hegelian dialectic. The problem is the central banks are collapsing. The reaction, people are afraid they're going to lose all their money. The solution is central bank digital currencies. But again, the central bank digital currencies it's a fake solution. It's a manipulative tactic that they're trying to usher in under the guise of, oh, here we are coming to the rescue. Don't worry, yeah, the banks are collapsing, but here we have this new thing, the central bank digital currency. Just use this and we'll get you your money back. But in reality, the central bank digital currency is just going to enslave people. And they're right now they're creating propaganda campaigns to create fear and uncertainty and doubt within the decentralized monetary systems. They're trying to demonize them. They're trying to say, oh, they're all a scam. They're all used for terrorists. They're all used for like criminals. Only criminals use those. That's the propaganda campaigns. And again, they're psychologically manipulating human consciousness in such a way to get you to accept their central bank digital currency and then shun the decentralized monetary systems, which is the true freedom and sovereignty of money, is a decentralized monetary system where we can self-custody our own money and become our own bank and transact privately and also without third-party intermediaries. This is probably one of the most effective tactics that they use to control consciousness is to control the money. See, the money is just energy. And if you can control the energy of a planet, you can control the population of the planet. Even the words that we use to describe money is just a play on words to describe energy. We call money currency, like an electric current. It's just describing electrical energy. We also call money liquidity, which is water. Water is energy. Water, the water flowing through the river is the current of a river. That's energy flowing through an ecosystem. And on the side of the river, we have the river banks. We deposit our money into the banks. What do the banks do? They direct the flow of the currency. When you swipe your credit card, we call it charging our card. So it's all, and just like we charge the batteries in our phones and in our cars with the electricity, when you swipe the card, you're charging it. It's an exchange of electrical energy. And they don't want you to know this. Again, this is all part of the psychological manipulation of human consciousness and how the English language is spell casting. words are spelled, because we are literally casting spells. And it's through the spell casting and the manipulation of language and through all these other tactics like I'm describing, how they are warring against our consciousness. It's a very sophisticated war, and we're just barely scratching the surface. I just listed maybe about a dozen examples or so, but we could go for hours and hours and hours and hours on end on these topics. But again, I'm just barely scratching the surface, hopefully to wake some people up and spread some awareness about these dynamics playing out in this war against human consciousness. So that's going to be it. I'm going to stop here because we're going a little over 30 minutes and I don't want to overload you with too much information. So I hope you got value out of this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.